Good evening and welcome to the debrief. I really like our music. I think our music is absolutely banging. The music that comes in on the intro, I don't know if you guys are like fans of it, but I actually think it's pretty cool. We were just discussing it as it was playing. This is our more casual and relaxed show we do on Saturdays. We've got some interesting videos we'll be reacting to today, and we'll mostly be focusing on US politics. UK politics might come up a little bit in comparison, but the focus of our stories is US politics. And with that in mind, we're very lucky to have our American political commentator, Will, aka Will Talks, on the show. Will is known for his commentary on Palestine and fierce debating style, and I've been a fan of Will for the longest time. And also, we said we had an exciting announcement for you, so it is my pleasure to announce that joining me tonight, we have the brilliant Sarah, who is the newest member of our Turn Left team. So be sure to give Sarah a warm welcome into the community. Yeah, we've got two fantastic and insightful guests tonight, so please do ask questions and comments, and we'll do our best to address them. Obviously, we won't get around to everything, but yeah, how are you two doing tonight?
Yeah, great. You know, when you have to it's like a Zoom meeting. We have to look at someone and be like, can I go first, or do you want to go first? But no, I'm doing good. It's a wonderful Saturday, and I'm so honoured to be a part of Turn Left. So I can't wait to be able to join these these platforms a lot more and do some videos myself. So yeah, great to be here.
Yeah, I'm doing well. I'm taking some breaks from revising. It's a great time. I'm a college student, so we're just living. And yeah, I mean, it's a cool organization, so I'm happy to be able to at least contribute to this part. So I'm excited for it. And I think it'll be nice. Like, I'm surrounded by a bunch of English people, so I can't talk about like American politics that much. So it'll be nice to kind of dive into it as a bit of a therapy. So it's necessary.
Honestly, mate, I've been dying to have you on the show for like months now, and I've just it's just the opportunity hasn't come up. So I'm glad that we finally got you on. I'm hoping that it will become like a thing where you'll come on and guest semi regularly if you're happy with that. But yeah, I'll just do a little bit of shilling before we get started. I'm just going to move back to this scene for a second. And I'll just do a little bit of shilling. We are still volunteers at Turn Left, and we're doing our best to produce content around our paid work. If we want to become a fully fledged media organisation, we do need your help. Please like and share our content and help us out financially by going to turnleftmedia.co.uk/support, where you can make a one-off donation or give us a small donation each month to keep us going. We're now also on Blue Sky, the fast-growing social media alternative to Twitter that we do want to support because, oh my God, what is going on with Twitter? So do go and check out our work on there. I also want to thank Zeke, who gifted 50 Turn Left memberships at the end of last night's show. That is a lot of money to shell out. We really appreciate your generosity. It does help us out so much, and I wanted to take the opportunity to say thank you. So I think we're going to have a look at our first story with some videos. And Sarah and Will, feel free to react in real time, but we'll do some commentary like after each video, so I'll sort of invite you in afterwards to give your thoughts as well. So, after Donald Trump attempted an insurrection in 2021, many of the January 6th insurrectionists were arrested and charged, including people who took zip ties in, like to literally kidnap members of Congress, who they're regarded as traitors for not going along with their Stop the Steal conspiracies. As you know, Donald Trump has pardoned all of them without exception, and one police officer who was injured at the scene has given his reaction to CNN. Let's have a look at that.
I want to bring in former D.C. Metro police officer Michael Fanone. He joins us. He was badly attacked, beaten, defending the Capitol, lost consciousness, suffered a heart attack after a man named Daniel Rodriguez repeatedly shocked him with a stun gun, yelling, "Trump won." Daniel Rodriguez was granted a pardon tonight.
I have been betrayed by my country. Rest assured, I have been betrayed by my country, and I've been betrayed by those that supported Donald Trump. Whether you voted for him because he promised these pardons or for some other reason, you knew that this was coming, and here we are. Tonight, 6 individuals who assaulted me as I did my job on January 6th, as did hundreds of other law enforcement officers, will now walk free. 6 individuals who have threatened my life and who have made threats towards my family members, as well as countless other January 6th defendants who have threatened me because they see me as a spokesperson for law enforcement for this event. My family, my children, and myself are less safe today because of Donald Trump and his supporters.
So that's a bit of an unusual one, but I wanted to include it because I feel like we haven't heard much from the police officers who were there on Jan 6th, and sort of hearing their perspective is quite interesting. And also, yeah, they're discussed. To be honest, I didn't know that people had been injured so badly that they'd had heart attacks. But yeah, what are your guys' sort of thoughts on that? Seeing that.
Do you mind me going first, Will?
No,
I don't know. For me, it's relatively shocking. I remember when January 6th had happened, and I was very staunch in the fact that I felt that Trump was a unifying force in far right circles to begin with, and then you saw January 6th happen, and you were like, "This is absolutely a fact now that he's a unifying force in far right circles." And even now, after the pardon had happened, I think his name was Enrique Tarrio, and I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, not absolutely butchering it. He went to go speak to Alex Jones, who I have huge problems with anyway, and said, "Oh yeah, well, I'm so grateful to Donald Trump for bringing, giving me my life back, and I vow to kind of get revenge." And I'm thinking, you've got Proud Boys leaders basically thanking Trump for the fact that January 6th has now been pardoned, and now they're already trying to do these implicit or subtle threats that something is going to happen as a result, and it frightens me. So then when you think, okay, people like the police officers who were there at the time, or anyone who's in charge of whatever, are being impacted by, I deem to be, a huge act of violence, and venturing into what could be I don't know, depends how you want to define terrorism, like in the most insane manner. Like, how is this being pardoned? How is this being justified? So yeah, super shocking.
Yeah, I think this whole situation puts especially leftists in a weird position because it makes us condemn terrorism, be on the side of the cops, be on the side of the institutions, and be anti-pardons, all of which is like typically the opposite side of like what we're talking about. Like whatever terrorism mean, it's obviously made up by like the US state to just like condemn whoever they don't like, which is why it wasn't thrown out that much. And so I think like it is the ultimate of like the insane contradictions that are going on right now. But I think that's kind of what fascists do, is they like heighten the contradictions. And so the fact that like they weren't called terrorists unilaterally by the people that'll cry terrorism when someone has a Palestinian flag is like the clearest thing ever. And so I don't think it's surprising at all that he would. And I saw a good comment from someone else that I wish I could remember the name of, where he now has his paramilitary. I mean, him pardoning people that were willing to put their lives on the line to try and overthrow American democracy, which for better or for worse is quite strong, they're now willing to do anything. They owe their life to them, and they're armed. So I think he's trying to build up his paramilitary, and I think he's trying to show that, if you benefit him, if you're on his side, you'll be benefited, and if you go against him, the law just won't work in your favor. So it's quite horrifying.
Absolutely. Agreed. And I think if you've got far right militia groups literally trying to plan for the next 4 years, and going back to Enrique, he literally said, yeah, we've got these 4 years, but we're going to try and build as much momentum as possible so that we're set up for the next 100 years. So it's like, what do they actually have planned, and how are they going to do these things? We know the lengths that they'll go to. This was evidence enough to see the strides that they will take to kind of assert their authority and their power. And like you said, Will, they are armed and they have no fear of authority. So when you have authorities kind of serve to protect society, not being able to do that, it kind of I think sets them back a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, just shortly on that, did you see the ProPublica investigation, I think, is very relevant to this, where there was an expose which is showing they're not just not afraid of authorities, they are the authorities. I mean, the thin blue line between the far right militias and the cops is becoming thinner every day. I mean, it's almost one-to-one crossover at this point, because the brainwashing that you do to enter either the military or become a cop, and the cognitive dissonance you have to build, leads you to be both in a position that being in a far right militia makes sense materially and is very easy to get into ideologically. And so I think that's the biggest, scariest part of this is there won't be a distinction between that hard authority and the kind of far right militias hiding in the shadows. I think they'll come out of the shadows.
It's interesting that you draw attention to the idea of whose sympathy sort of lies with when we're talking about the word terrorist, and like, oh, you don't brand them a terrorist because they're a bit too much like us. Because actually, the only name that I sort of knew really well from the Jan 6th stories was Ashley Babbitt, and of course, it's because Ashley Babbitt died. You know, that is part of it. It's so nice being on TikTok and not having not being on TikTok and not having to say unalive, doesn't it?
Yeah,
break
be
through the
censored.
colloquialisms.
Yeah.
I know. I don't have to say unalived.
No,
We can say Nazi. Like we can. Oh my
we can
goodness.
say
my God.
terrorist and not T word. You know,
Yeah,
literally.
yes.
I had to like be really conscious. I was going to say like terrorist. I was like, I can say that. Yes, I can.
Yes, yeah, you have to think it through in your head before you say anything. Like we know that, but I feel like like other names, other victims are not sort of like put forward. And of course, got police officer here, but we know he wasn't the only one that was injured on the day. And it's always worth bearing in mind that like the intention was always to intimidate, right? That's why they were taking zip ties. Like that was the purpose. It was kidnapping. Or attempted kidnapping, I should say, in a way that I don't see from left wing groups. Like I don't see left wing groups doing this sort of thing. Do you know what I mean?
Exactly. And I remember Stuart Rhodes, who he was requesting a full pardon, but he had literally said that that day should have been called Patriots Day, and that we were there to protect the interests of Trump and protect him against Antifa. And I'm thinking, where was the threat from quote unquote Antifa, and where like this elusive threat that's coming from nowhere? It was just ridiculous.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's worth restating. The only reason Antifa would ever be a threat to you is if you're anti-Antifa, i.e., a fascist. I mean, like it's been said before, and it should be said again. The only people that are anti-Antifa are fascists. Like it's not. And also, like the thing about leftists, I mean, there have been militant leftist organizations in America before. They just get murked. I mean, they just get killed. Like the whole thrust of the CIA is. Their whole point, arguably, is to destroy insurgency groups against leftist insurgency groups, really, in America. And they seem to have a proclivity for supporting any insurgency group anywhere else. But like we get killed, whereas they get institutionalized, they get brought in. There's the ongoing meme that you look at Trump administration one's LinkedIn's, and they're just like barista, head of defense. Like they just bring in anyone that's an ideologue. They bring in anyone beneficial, no matter how truly radical they are.
Yeah, it's also worth restating because Will, you will remember this because you were on TikTok on January. You would have been on TikTok during the January 6th stuff, so you'll know that the amount of like conspiracy theories that were spreading, like, oh, this isn't us, this is all Antifa are raiding the Capitol, and it's now like everybody from that has been pardoned. So does that mean that the Antifa people who sabotaged you have been pardoned? Like, how do they square this circle? Like.
But I also wonder how many of those people that actually went into the Capitol that day were actually serving police officers and people that you see in your everyday. Because I know that a lot of those people are, civil servants, essentially. I don't really know what they call them in the US, but civil servants, like people that are there to protect state property and people, but in actual fact are doing quite the opposite.
Yeah. It's worth some consideration. And actually, that kind of leads us nicely onto the next bit, because I wanted to bring up a story from an insurrectionist, somebody who saw it from the other side. I always think when we're talking about mass atrocity, let's say when we're talking about Sadnaya, the prison camp that Bashar al-Assad used to run, and we talk about like people's experiences from there, and what solidifies it is not often the experiences of victims, although that is important, but often the experiences of perpetrators that can give us their stories and can go, hey, this is, I was an SS concentration camp guard. I was a prison guard at Sednaya. I was somebody who committed an atrocity. I was somebody who, and now I've seen the light. I've seen it in a different light. And with that in mind, we have this video, which is a video from a insurrectionist on January 6th who regrets the way that she acted that day.
It was an insurrection, and I don't want to be a part of helping them rewrite history. I was guilty.
So
I pleaded guilty. I was guilty.
So you are happy for your conviction to stand?
Absolutely.
What was it that made you take part in the Capitol riot in the first place? What drove you to do it?
You don't realize it at the time. I know now that MAGA is a cult and that Trump is a dangerous narcissist that put out the big lie that the election was stolen. But when you're in the MAGA cult, they gaslight you so much and tell you not to listen to anybody but Trump. And you go along with them. You don't do your own research. You lose your critical thinking and you just start listening to all the lies. But later when as I found out, all of this has been nothing but propaganda and lies, and that Trump truly is a dangerous narcissist. He's now a felon, a criminal. So it's not surprising that he's bringing his other criminals to help him implement whatever he's planning on doing.
Do you think it is dangerous to issue these pardons, certainly to those guilty of violent crimes? Do you think it could lead to more trouble?
Absolutely.
Yeah, interesting that she kind of brought up that idea of, or rather the interviewer brought up that idea of like emboldening the far right and what it could do in that aspect. Yeah, if either of you guys want to leap in and give your thoughts on that.
I think the most immediate, I think she's right. I think it's respectable. I think people do have this like come to Jesus moment for what it's called. Like it happens, like de-radicalization happens. But the idea of, I don't know if this is terribly relevant to the point, but there's a common narrative that Trumpism is a cult. To which I have like an immediate, like as a materialist, like knee-jerk reaction to no, it's not. Like cults are in some way material, but they're also in some way ideological, but in some way also very, very material. Where if it wasn't Trump, it probably would have been another person. And it also isn't really Trump. I mean, we saw at the inauguration, there were 10 oligarchs behind him. Right. And it wasn't him, pulling them in and saying, well, I'll destroy your companies if you don't. No, it was probably much more of a carrot than a stick. It was probably a much more, I'm on your side, I'm benefiting you. And so, yes, it is propaganda. Yes, it is lies that pulls you in. And that's what tricks the working class. But I think that's an important aspect to how fascists grow and develop. But I also think there's another really important aspect to this is, if this was leftists, I mean, we would have seen Jeff Bezos' private army go in and protect the Capitol, right? We would have seen the cops get privately hired and protect them, right? Like this is what would have happened. There would have been no stopping. They could just shot him, and it wouldn't have been covered by the media. So on one side, yeah, it is a cult of the working class to some extent, but it is also just a natural consequence of the oligarchy of America. And I think that deserves a bit more center stage, especially when talking about the violent consequences of it, which are not, they're not symptomatic or periphery. They're quite fundamental.
I do think there is a certain level of I was laughing throughout it, and that probably says a lot about me, because I'm like, oh, so now you've realised, like, thanks, babe, like, come on, you could have realised this sooner. And maybe that's really unsympathetic of me, but I'm thinking, I guess to each their own. They all have their own journeys. But I know that she goes by, or she was called MAGA Granny. Like, I've seen her before. And what I worry for when it comes to people who then do come out and say that I do feel like I've been gaslit, etc., like, do you not fear, I guess, I don't know, any consequence or like the retribution that comes with against that come from Trump loyalists, essentially? Because Trump loyalists are so loyal to the core, they will die on that hill when it comes to echoing the things that Trump says. So there was a part of me that was like, I do fear for her, because I'm sure she's getting a lot of backlash from those who are so staunch on being a Trump supporter. So I don't know where she's going to go from here. Do I take my hat off to her a little bit, maybe slightly? But I don't know. I'm not sure. I lack so much sympathy when it comes to people that are dabble with conspiratorial thinking or dabble with the idea that the elections were doctored or fixed or whatever. Like, I really, really struggle. And then when you saw the level of violence that ensued on that day, I'm like, I don't know what you want me to say to you. Like, sorry, Maga Granny. Like, do you want me to say well done to you for being so noble and saying, no, I believe I should be held to account? Absolutely, you should. Absolutely. Like, so I don't know. No, I lack a bit of sympathy. Maybe I need to unpack that.
I think I've got a little bit more sympathy because, like Mark's pointed out, like she's got some bravery to say all this, and
Yeah.
it does take a lot to admit when you're wrong. Obviously, our preference would be don't do an insurrection. Like, that would be great. But like, if you've done an insurrection, I'd rather you came forward and spoke about it.
Absolutely.
And were fighting against the idea of another one potentially happening, because it usually isn't the first attempt that's the threat, right? Look at Russia, look at Germany. Every attempt at a revolution is just usually not the first one that's the one that's successful. It's usually the third, fourth, fifth one that's the dangerous one. Will, did you want to jump in?
Yeah, I just on the points of like how we feel about her. I agree it's complicated. And I think interpersonally, like if she was my grandma, would I forgive her? No. Like would I talk to her at family reunion? No. Like you don't get that respect, right? You like I don't respect this. Like I don't do it interpersonally, yeah. But politically and in like political communities, right? I think this comes out like this is just a leftist truism of we have to kill our inner cop. Of like there is a point of like if someone did something bad and we want to like punish them and we think the justice system is set up such as to punish them, and I don't think that's how at least I would tend to try and approach this, whereas I would try and understand what benefit do you have now. I don't care if you're a good person. It actually has no bearing on my life if you're a good person or if I need to consider you to be a good person. I think the bigger question is is this narrative going to be helpful to us? Is the narrative of someone coming to senses that they've been duped, been propagandized, been lied to, and that their interests are being perverted? Is that a good, helpful narrative? And it probably is. I mean, in a purely propaganda sense, it probably is a good idea to promote her and be like, hey, old women, that like I don't know, this is an example I always think of, like your bridge group is big Trumpers, right? You can go to that bridge group and say that this was not okay. Like the people that look and act and are from your background are kind of coming to this realization that's okay. And so in terms of normalization, I think that's probably a really, really good thing. In terms of how we build and grow political communities, I don't know if I'd ever do any helpful work with her or people along her. And I think rehabilitation is a personal process that takes a bit more than like a Fox News interview for me to believe you, especially when you're getting clout from that Fox News interview. I don't trust anyone online. But that
Neither do I. Neither do I. And maybe that's why I do need to unpack a bit of sympathy towards her and those that maybe do have come to this bitter realization that Trump is not for the working man and Trump is not for, I guess, the working classes. Like, so it is a harsh and bitter realization that they do come to when they realize that actually Trump, who is very anti-establishment and very self-centered and only cares for himself and his own interests, that they realize that, oh gosh, yeah, I am going to be left behind in this. So I don't know. We'll see for the likes of her, Maga Granny, and the people that do come out after and say echo the same things. But I think a lot of people will not say the same things because they fear the retribution that will come from the loyalists of Trump. So who knows? Who knows? But you've made such a great point, Will. I agree.
I saw this, and I think I'm broadly in agreement with this. It's like Chapman said, I don't respect her just for coming to the realization, but I respect that she's putting herself on the line by speaking out over and over again. I think that's probably the sort of like balanced position, but of course without, you don't want it to become a clout thing for her. I've got an interesting comparison to sort of draw for you two. I think there's something there. So it's a comparison that people have drawn before. I'm by no means the first to make this comparison, but of course there's big parallels with the 1923 Munich beer hall putsch. which was the sort of first attempt by the NSDAP, the National Socialist Deutsche Arbeiterpartei, the National Socialist of Nazis, to take over the Weimar government. It was their first sort of attempted coup. And there's so many parallels that you can like draw to here. So you've got this idea of a rebellion against an original crime. They feel that an original crime was done against the state. In the case of like the US, that's like stop the steal. But in the case of Germany, it was like undo the work of the November criminals, the people who they feel betrayed them by signing the Treaty of Versailles. You've got that they were headed up by these like ultra masculinist paramilitary groups. It's the Oath Keepers, the Proud Boys. But in Germany, of course, it was like the Freikorps and the Sturmabteilung, the SA, led by Ernst Röhm. You've got it failing because of right-wing institutionalists who refused to support the coup when it was at its height. So it's Gustav von Kahr is usually one of the figures that brought up. There's another two, but I can't remember the other two off the top of my head. And in the US, of course, you've got Mike Pence. Again, it's this thing of like an attempted coup, but it failed because of right-wing institutionalists who were supposed to be on their side, but turned on them at the last minute. You've got this legal attempts by liberals afterwards that only seem to have garnered the insurrectionist, the head of the insurrectionists' sympathy, and afterwards having much more success in democratic means after merging with corporate power. Like I can see lots of parallels. I can see differences as well. For example, like Hitler was at the very head of the Bierhall Putsch, as in like he almost got shot, trying to march at the front of the Bierhall Putsch. But of course, Trump was very removed, as is to some degree Trump's nature, being removed from the situation and letting other people do his dirty work. But that is also a feature of fascism as well, that they tend to let things play out. It doesn't tend to be that they're directing the violence outright, but it's rather that stochastic violence that we see, where it's like, I'll give you a general idea and then you fill in the blanks and go out and commit the violence. What do you guys think of that as like a comparison to be drawn at this moment? Am I like jumping the gun too much? Feel free to tell me if I am jumping the gun too much. I've gone green. I think I just hit my.
You have gone green.
There you go.
Yeah, there we go.
It's because there's green on the back of my screen and my light went out. Feel free to tell me if I'm jumping the gun. But
Sure.
yeah, what do you guys think of the comparison?
I mean, so my immediate background is I've made comparisons to the Nazis all the time in my context, and I get called all sorts of names for this because people are really allergic to talking about the history of the Nazis, because there's been this weird I could go for really long in it, but I'll just go with the thesis, which is like Nazis have become a myth of what America isn't. And the only definition in Americans' minds of what a Nazi is just anything that's un-American. Let's just be real. And they are unable to actually engage in when America looks a lot like Nazi Germany. It's actually entirely unable to engage in the historical things. And then it becomes somehow offensive when you actually go, no, this is actually what happened. And then it's like, no, you're degrading what a Nazi is. It's like, well, no, it is a real thing that actually did exist. And this is actually what happened. And so I think I think Trump is a Nazi. I think he's a fascist. I think he's doing fascist stuff. And consistently, he's targeting minorities. He has an alignment with the oligarchs. He's lying to the working people, right? He has the aesthetics of nationalism, all the efficiency of oligarchy. Like, he is a fascist. There's no doubt about that. And I do think it's very clear. Trump tried to overturn the election. Trump tried to that Joe Biden won. He's actually did. We have released documents from that. He actually did attempt to protect the insurrectionists. I think it's a spot-on analogy, quite honestly. And I think the only difference is Trump is a millionaire by some accounts. Hitler wasn't at the time, right? Hitler had less to lose, quite honestly. His only way forward in life was to win this fascist revolt, whereas Trump, if he loses, this is a vanity project to him, quite honestly. It's a vanity project for slightly less taxes for him and his friends. So I think that explains why he wasn't at the front. He doesn't want to get shot because he doesn't care that much about this. And that's self-evident with how little research. He's not going to write a book. You think Trump's going to write a Mein Kampf? He's too lazy for that. No Heritage Foundation, right? I think it's exactly spot on. And I think we need to get bolder with this. I don't think there's the final thing. I don't think there's a chance in hell that we actually degrade what the word Nazi means. I think we throw it out, we throw shit at a wall until it sticks, because everyone goes, whenever we use Nazi, oh, you're degrading what Nazi is. No, I'm telling you what it is. I'm actually informing you. And you not knowing, you being ill-informed, that's what's disrespectful to the people denying. And so I think it's spot on. And I think anything, like the vast majority of things Trump does is Nazi bullshit, and call that out for what it is. So I agree.
I also agree. Like, I can't disagree. I mean, for me, you have to just look at how both of those individuals, how Trump came into power. If we even just look at Hitler's ascendance into power, it required assembling, I guess, these minor nationalist factions, and then you could argue that Trump's way into power was basically taking control of an existing national organization. So there are similarities there, but then also both of them display these maniacal approach to politics. The way that Trump asserts his rhetoric, his politics, I think is very, very similar to that of Hitler. He has this vulgar denunciation when it comes to the way that he speaks of, like you said, Will, these quote unquote illegal aliens, and then this whole idea that I do genuinely think that the likes of Trump do reiterate things that imply there is this threat to those that are indigenously American, but not even indigenous Americans, it's white Americans. Be scared of the illegal alien that's coming into this country. He's going to take something from you. So point it over there. That's where you need to harbor your social resentment. And there is a danger to that. And I think that was the very same rhetoric that Hitler was rooted in as well. What's also interesting between Hitler and Trump is that they did, and Trump continues to do, to point out these failures in his opponents as a way to kind of uplift himself, and how he's this more notable leader that's worthy of trust. So he will highlight these claims that him and him alone can fix the country's problems, and these are the problems in public policy and society, and look at me, I'm going to spearhead this movement to sort it out. Are we forgetting how TikTok was done? It happened for a day, and he was like, don't worry, I'm here. And then I saw someone send it to me, this prompt that said, Donald Trump has helped
I got it.
TikTok back. Yes,
I got it.
This is what he does.
Ridiculous.
He is absolutely ridiculous, and this is him trying to show that he is for the people, but in actual fact he is not. He's only a self-serving, self-interested political leader, if we can even call him that. But there are comparable traits, I think, in Trump's singular assertion of his unique abilities and the Nazi leaders' insistence on and I don't know how to pronounce this word, but it's for German. Cog, can you help me? Not that you're German, but it's for home principle or something like that.
Oh, the Führer principle.
Yes, that.
I can't remember the
I can't say it
now.
in German, but that in and of itself,
yes,
I think is something that needs to be spoken
Führer
about.
principle. We'll just go with.
Yeah.
I thought this comment was worth drawing attention to. Edward Sexby says the Nazis got their inspiration from the ideas of manifest destiny, eugenics, and scientific racism from the US and the British Empire. Of course, that's why it's so difficult to untie it, right? But I know we know this, but it's worth always drawing attention to. The Nazis literally used Jim Crow as the model for a lot of their the 1935 anti-Jewish laws that went in at the time, the Nuremberg laws that went in at the time. I just want to.
There is another comment, actually, that might be quite an interesting one. They said, I've been thinking a lot about assuming we make it out alive. How on earth do you demagify the US? German was by no means Nazi. So what do you do with the millions of people who were complicit AF? How do we demagify the US?
Well, I think so. If we think about denazification, this is where once again, the internet hates me, but I'm right. America didn't denazify, right? America didn't denazify Germany. That's not what happened. We actually hired a bunch of Nazis. We took in a bunch of Nazis. The German Central Intelligence Agency, I forget what it's called, was founded and staffed by Nazis back post-unification. The people that did denazify are the people that actually don't like Nazis, communists. They're the only ones that actually did. They had their issue. I don't like Stalin, but he did denazify. That is actually what happened. They actually went through and prosecuted a huge amount of Nazis. If you look at the rolls, it's about 10 times as many Nazis were prosecuted under Soviet control rather than American control. And so I don't think that's the right answer, because that's an authoritarian carceral approach, right? And just like we don't, like, going through and doing a purity test of every single person, especially the 75 million people that voted for Trump. I don't think we can do that. I don't think we're interested in doing that. And so from my view, like, the actual, like, leftist approach to denazifying is to change the material conditions, right? If you talk to a Trump supporter for 2 seconds, they do care about egg prices. Like, they really do. And they also don't really care about immigrants. Right? They just think that immigrants are the reason for the egg prices, so they superimpose it, right? The biases come in, or take a very long time to deconstruct and systemically destroy. That's true. Racism, sexism, like xenophobia will exist forever. But activating the biases, making people have that at the center of their mind, is actually very quick to undo and depoliticize and take away from the political realm. And so I think that's the first step, is we build a viable leftist alternative where we go, no, your material needs will be met. Your community will be here for you. You don't need to hate brown people to do this. You don't need to expel gay people to do this. Right. And so you take care of people's material needs, and you don't lie to them saying, that it's all okay, like the liberals did. And I think that's the way you both take away the fascist power and build a system resilient to fascism.
I would add mockery. I think mockery is very powerful, because fascists want to be taken seriously, right? They want to be the big threat. Like, they want to be, I'm just laughing along here, but actually, I'm a threat. I know that I'm a threat. And that's their whole thing. And the followers who, no 14-year-old boy has stopped being a fan of Donald Trump or Andrew Tate because they're dangerous, they're fascists, right? No 14-year-old boy is in that position, and they're the ones that tend to get radicalized, young men. Although older people also do get radicalized, but that's a slightly different picture. And I think mockery has to play a big role in that, because they'll be persuaded not to follow Andrew Tate or Donald Trump if you take the piss out of Donald Trump's weight, or Andrew Tate. Not that I'm endorsing fat phobia, of course, or the fact that Andrew Tate is bald. These are strange, those mockery things that you can apply. That doesn't have to be physical appearance. I'm just going for
I'm sorry. I support making fun of Andrew Tate for being bald, because that's number one, very funny, and number two, he makes fun of people for being bald.
Exactly.
And it's like, brother,
the irony.
I agree with that. Yes. That is very, very funny. And I would agree, the aesthetics matter. I think on the larger theory basis, fascists are all aesthetics. They have nothing other than aesthetics, and they just make you think about the aesthetics. And so we have some liberal resurgence of nationalism, which I don't like. We have organizations like Dream for America that are trying to reclaim an American nationalism that it won't work out. It doesn't work. But you can reclaim basic aesthetics. I famously try and reclaim the Jim Bro aesthetic from the straights. But that's a personal vendetta, everyone. I don't want the straight people to be the only ones having it. But it also does work. I mean, Hassan Piker being hot surely radicalizes people, right? Or at least makes people feel comfortable engaging with that. It actualizes the biases in a productive way rather than a negative way.
Yeah, I can't reclaim the Jim Bro aesthetics because I'm not built for that. But anyway, we should get on to our next.
We'll take it from the straights. I will give it to you because I do not dabble. So yeah.
Okay. Let's have a look at another video. We want to look at a slightly different area, because since that point, the USA has been hit with a flurry of executive orders. Since the point of Donald Trump taking office for the second time, the USA has been hit with a flurry of executive orders. And there was a TikTok I found which listed some of them that I thought was quite interesting. So let's have a look at that. Here's this one.
It hasn't even been 48 hours yet. Here are the things that he has literally promised to take away from us. Signing away an executive order that prevented discrimination on the basis of sexual orientation and gender identity. He took away an order for ethics commitment within his own branch of government. Speed round took away enabling all people to serve in the military even though we're short, protecting the federal workforce. Removing an order that eliminated all privately owned criminal detention centers to make the prison complex better. Removing the Presidential Council to Science and Technology. The climate crisis, both here and abroad. For almost half of his voters who are in poverty, he is removing an order that strengthened Medicare. This is a fun one since he never shuts the fuck up about it. Removing orders that strengthen our legal immigration system to allow legal immigrants. He took that away. Another speed round, access to voting. For almost 6 million of you, gender representation? No. Removed anti-discrimination policies from education. Last speed round, he took away protections for AAPI individuals, Native Americans. He took them away for Hispanic people. He took them away for Black Americans. That was on his first day. And he signed it in front of people, in front of cameras, proudly. But yeah, I'm sure I'm going to get comments of me being dramatic.
Okay, and we're going to bring in something else in a second. I'm going to speed through a couple of videos just to catch us up with the time. Of course, there was also the freezing of state spending in many areas to eliminate so-called DEI spending, which is particularly funny since DEI is actually the initials of his children, Donald, Eric, and Ivanka, who I suspect are an enormous amount of money is being wasted on. We won't comment immediately on this one because I do want to bring in this video that I thought was insightful among other videos that we've got. So...
People keep warning us that Trump uses chaos to cover up his real agenda, but they never say what they think his real agenda is, which starts to feel a little bit like conspiracy territory, which turns off a lot of the more discerning members of the left. So imagine my surprise when I'm looking up his approval rating now that it's been a couple of weeks since he started naming nominees and signing executive orders, and I see a list of those executive orders pop up in a Reuters poll. And at the very top of the list of unpopular executive orders is something I've never even heard of. Ending requirements that government employees report gifts or investments. 77% of voters disapprove of this action. And yet I'm guessing you haven't heard of it because it was clumped together in a jargony sounding order called Initial Rescissions of Harmful Executive Orders and Actions. So I looked that up. It repealed dozens of Biden's executive orders, including 13989, which regulates gifts and investment reporting, lobbying, and my personal favorite, golden parachutes that are designed exclusively for lobbyists to accept government positions. Wait, Donald, didn't you just tell Theo Vaughn?
Well, one way you can stop it is to say if you're going to go into government, you can never be a lobbyist. If you're an elected official or if you work in government, you can never be a lobbyist.
And wait, didn't I just read that you nominated 5 former lobbyists to your cabinet? So let's bring this together. You lied about hiring lobbyists. You rescind reporting requirements for investments and gifts from lobbyists. You rescind the ban on golden parachutes for lobbyists who join government. And then you fire 17 inspectors general, including 2 who are responsible for spotting fraud in the departments you just nominated lobbyists to run, the Department of Transportation and the Department of Veterans Affairs. Now I know we all agree that Trump wants to be an authoritarian leader, but I'm not sure that's his top priority. If you look at his track record and you look at this evidence that I just provided, I think what Trump really wants to do is the same thing he's always done. Grift.
So I think that that's something we can get to, but there's one more that I want to bring in to continue this discussion. Is a video about tax implications, which I kind of wasn't aware of and kind of kept on the down low a little bit.
Trump's tax plans were just released for his presidency, and would you look at that? For the poorest 20% of people, on the left side right there, taxes are going to increase. In fact, for the next poorest 20% of people, taxes are going to increase. And even more so, for the next poorest 20% of people, so the poorest 60% of people, taxes are increasing. Move my head down so you can see it a little bit. For the fourth most, so this is the 80th percentile, taxes are increasing. And one more for you, the next 15%, taxes are increasing. So for 95% of people, the 95 poorest percent of people, taxes are increasing. And then of course for the next 4% and the richest 1%, there's a massive tax cut. So if you make less than $28,000 a year right now, you're going to owe more taxes. But also if you make less than $360,000 a year right now, you're going to owe more taxes. But once you hit that $360,000 threshold, you're good. You're fine. No, you get a tax cut. Very interesting. No comment, just very interesting.
So, apologies if it seems like a bit of a niche question, but do we think that Trump is just using the executive orders to cover for stuff to benefit the rich or benefit himself potentially? Or do you think that this is all being driven by like a larger libertarian, like anti-state element, and an attempt to deconstruct the administrative state in line with like the Project 2025 stuff? What's your sort of reading on this, guys?
Do you want to go first, Will?
Sure. I can. Yeah. I've said this. I said this before Trump was elected. Trump is racist, but he cares a lot more about money than he cares about being racist.
Exactly.
It goes serving the oligarchs, all the social issues, and I stand by that. Yeah. I don't think it's fully cover, but I think on the tax thing. First of all, I just wanted to note directly on that video. I would love to see that proportion to income, because the tax breaks are like 10 times more for the wealthy, but it's actually very de minimis. Like to the top 1%, an extra $30,000 is not that much, right? And they're not going to invade the country to do that. They are, though, very interested in keeping the working class very poor. And so I think a lot of the narrative about it's only to benefit I don't think it's that he wants tax cuts for the rich as much as he does want to crush the working class. And I just think there's a slight change in rhetoric that would be like super helpful there. Is he's not interested just in like helping them. It's also in actively hurting you, because if you're working paycheck to paycheck, you know, you don't have time to form a union. You can't search a job that fires you unjustly, whatever. But yeah, this is what fascists do. They use the social issues to garner support from the working class, and then they garner support for the oligarchs with their economic issues. On a final thing, he doesn't want to kick out immigrants. He will, but why would he want to? They're really good workers, right? They're really profitable because you don't have to pay them anything. You don't have to give them working protection, right? What he wants to do is terrorize immigrants, right? That's the job. You're terrorizing them. He has no interest in kicking them out because they're great workers. You want to terrorize them so that his cronies don't have to pay them. And so I think there's a complicated relationship between all the social issues and all of the economic issues. But the economic issues come first, and then the social issues are always some tool of them, from my view.
Is it like, I don't even think it's like completely unprecedented for someone in power to act or behave in this sort of way. We know that, I think with Trump particularly, I am still very much on the side where I think he is a very self-interested individual, but I also agree with Will in the sense that he knows the benefits he can get from immigrants. He knows that they benefit quite considerably to the economy, and he also knows that they are cheap labor in his eyes. So actually, you're kind of keeping costs down. You're still minimizing costs. But I do think that this is a way to kind of like assert his power in ways that are so abhorrent and heinous. To think that you are actually flouting the Constitution in some ways, violating the Constitution in many ways, and just expanding your power in ways that are completely insane to me is wild. I really don't know what's going to happen when it comes to the US, but what I do know for sure is that the working class will get considerably poorer, the rich will get considerably richer. So we're seeing this complete and utter flourishment when it comes to capitalism. Like, he is just running with it, and he's thinking about himself and the likes of him when it comes to these freezes and the freezing of certain tax bills, and also I guess ensuring that the ladder does not exist for working class individuals. You will have the rich saying to the working class as well, just climb better, get on the ladder, you can climb it if you can, but in actual fact the ladder does not exist for the working class people, and he's going to make sure that that is not there, it's not in place. So yeah, the hierarchy is well and truly in motion in the US. So I really do worry when it comes to working class people kind of working their way up, if they can. At this point, I don't know, it's kind of impossible.
I think that the repression of the working class is something, again, I'm always going to draw it back to Nazi Germany. I'm sorry, it's my field. It's like literally the field I studied. So I'm sort of like, I'm always going to bring it back to that. Apologies. But the what the German Labour Front did, the Deutsche Arbeiterfront did, it was literally like employers were empowered to particularly during the Strength Through Joy program in the 1930s, were empowered to be able to send employees who disobeyed them to concentration camps. There was that very tight link between corporate power, the owner, and the state. And that's always worth sort of bearing in mind, but also the special courts and what Ernst Frankl referred to as the prerogative state, i.e., you have like so Ernst Frankl is like dual state theory, as in that you've got the normative and prerogative state. The law basically applies to different people in different ways. So the way that the law applied to Jewish people in Nazi Germany, very different to the way it applied to your regular German. And similarly, like obviously in the US, there's a very different application of the law, not just among the obvious among the racial divide, which is black people get treated much worse by the authorities, no doubt about that. Countless studies have proved it, but also along the political divide as well. The right wing will get special treatment, they'll get special privileges, they'll get away with a lot more. And I wonder if this attempt to deconstruct that administrative state is also an attempt to keep the working class down through making it a more prerogative system, as in a system where you can't just go, well, if we take it through the bureaucracy and the courts, we can sort of like keep everything safe. Like, I guess that was sort of what Project 2025 was about in a lot of ways, but I don't know. I don't know if I'm maybe misreading that, or maybe it's not that complicated. That's all distraction, or whether that's part of it. I'm not
No, I
sure.
think that's accurate.
I think it's
I
accurate
probably
too.
agree. Yeah,
I also agree. So go ahead, Will. Go ahead.
No, I think that's generally accurate. Project
Yeah.
2025. They're becoming co-conciliators of the government. The oligarchs are becoming proper oligarchs.
And I think this is the only very beginning of a Trump administration. And I think if there's no pushback, then we're going to normalize this sort of behavior. I think there has to be pushback if people want to see an overhaul of what's actually happening in the US. And I think this is something that Tribe has said as well, that there needs to be a pushback. So this normalization of what this system of government is doing is not going to happen going forward. There needs to be a fair degree of pushback. But I don't know how impactful pushback is going to be when you have someone who is violating the Constitution in so many ways. This is someone who is abusing and expanding his power in ways that are, I think someone said it in the comments, in ways that are abusive. And when it comes to even having conversations with someone who is an abuser, someone who is a perpetrator of harm, they aren't going to listen. Instead, like he's done successfully well over the last few years, he will gaslight you into thinking that you are wrong and make you seem as though you're the problem. Like, hey, you're looking in the wrong direction. Go look over there. Hey, look what's happening over here. Oh my God, illegal aliens are coming here. Like, look at what they're taking from you. So the very ethos of like competitive like neoliberalism is what he's pushing forward. And I'm so frightened for the state of America and the destabilization that's going to happen as a result of having Trump in office for the next 4 years. So it's not even just for the next 4 years. We also have to think about the impact he will have after that too. There will be so many things that will form the fabrics of our society going forward. So I don't know, the repercussions of having to recover from a Trump administration will be something to write books about.
To draw attention to this comment, because Rachel also put in a $2 donation, which we appreciate massively. We're all just temporarily embarrassed millionaires. It's one of my favorite sayings, actually. Will, did you want to jump in?
I just think that's generally accurate. I also think not only the destabilization of America, but it's also important. I mean, Trump is right on one thing, which is America does prop up the defense apparatus of Europe. It props up the defense apparatus of about half this world. And so destabilization of the vast majority of geopolitical conflicts going on will happen. We're already seeing it. He paused all U.S. aid. The U.S. aid is the largest international humanitarian organization in the world. Obviously, it has political benefits, but it props up, for example, humanitarian aid from the UK. I mean, the Home Office of the UK, their science advisor is funded almost completely by US aid. So it will destabilize and harm American citizens. But my God, the first victims will be the third world. We're already seeing it. The example I was talking previously, I think off stream, was no prep. and PEP will be going to Khartoum in Sudan, where 40 babies a day are getting diagnosed with HIV. I mean, like, we will see, it will, like, just from the actions within this week, we will see millions die or gain unconscionable injury or illness. And so I think, like, the American system is here because they've imperialized half the world. But you gain obligations that Trump is simply going to harm and destroy. And his concept of imperialism is taking over Greenland and taking over Panama. And it will just destroy the neoliberal system that's going on in possibly the only thing worse than neoliberalism, which is the peak of neoliberalism, fascism. So yeah, it really is horrifying. And I think the canary in the coal mines will be the third world and the harms in the third world.
Yeah, it's ironic also that he calls it the golden age of America. And I'm just like, so subjective. What golden age are we going to be seeing, Mr. Trump? So and do you know what? He's barely into his second week of presidency, and he's already doing these sorts of things. So you're absolutely right, Will. Absolutely right. Like, cannot add to that, honestly.
I just want to respond to a comment. Jacqueline says, quite correctly, by the way, didn't the Supreme Court enable all the US presidents, not just Trump, with their recent ruling? Yes, in theory, but this is what I mean about the distinction between the normative and prerogative state, right? When Joe Biden was in power, it didn't matter that that ruling had gone through, because the way it applied to him is very different to the way it applies to Republicans and Trump. They get very different powers just as a result of who they are. It's not, it's not that what the law is, it's who the law applies to. I think it's just an interesting thing to go into. I just want to spin and pivot to another topic, if that's all right with you guys.
Can I make one quick note on that comment?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Just for a second. Just really quick, just on the Supreme Court ruling, it stopped him from having personal legal liability. From it, but it didn't give him unlimited power legally. I mean, he has unlimited power because who's going to stop him? His own self-appointed Supreme Court. That's the significant part. But that specific ruling was just that it basically thickened the veil of criminal responsibility between official actions and personal actions. And so as long as he does something officially, he isn't going to be criminally responsible for it, barring abject treason is technically what it said. Is absolutely absurd. But yeah, he's still going to do whatever he wants. But importantly, the reason I correct that is, even if we really still believe in the law, the culture should be holding him to the Constitution. The culture, the power and expectation, and what we're surprised at, that has power. That's about all the power we have, is to say, no, that's not right. And we shouldn't just say, oh, the Supreme Court greenlit it, therefore it must be true. No, the Supreme Court, actually, even they didn't greenlight really him just doing whatever he wants with executive power. This is meant to be a congressional society. It's meant to be Congress running it, and we've just elected a monarch. So
Yeah, I completely agree. Yeah, and that kind of goes back to what I was saying, that if you normalize this sort of attitude, this sort of law-breaking demeanor that Trump is adopting, instead of actually pushing back, then I think it'll be hard to ever restore the system of government that people are actually used to. And not that that should be a system of government that they're used to, but I don't think that this is one that is helpful. I think it's limited in nature, and I think it's dangerous. So yeah, completely agree with you.
The constitution is to law what grammar is to language, to quote Thomas Paine from The Rights of Man. Like, it's true. It really is. Like, without that constitution, that guiding sort of idea, democracy, law, it doesn't work. Let's turn to another video then. We're going to slightly pivot and have a look at the Elon Musk stuff.
Sorry.
I know.
I hear the name and I just shiver.
I know, I'm at that point as well. So Elon Musk made clear in his post that he thinks Jewish people have created hatred against white people. He's made clear on this with this on Twitter. But there was a video that I think kind of summarized the whole thing quite well, turning to a different area of American politics, and Elon Musk's Nazi salute and the reactions to it. So just as a bit of a palate cleanser, I wanted to start with a sensible reaction to Elon Musk's Nazi salute that I think is, sensible, and I agree with.
Elon Musk hit it, okay? Twice. In succession, enthusiastically, and dare I say belligerently. He even hit the chest while hitting it, okay? You want to know why it's funny? Because you don't need that to know that Elon Musk is a fucking Nazi. Like, what are we talking about? Context here is that Musk supports AfD, the far-right party in Germany. Not only that, but also Elon Musk has talked with the leadership of the AfD, the neo-Nazi party in Germany, about how Hitler was actually a socialist doing historical revisionism surrounding the Holocaust, okay? Elon Musk has also unbanned every single Nazi in North America and around the globe after purchasing Twitter. Elon Musk in that process has also personally followed neo-Nazi accounts. Elon Musk has highlighted neo-Nazi accounts. Elon Musk famously responded to a person doing the classic neo-Nazi fascist anti-Semitic statement that like Jews are doing unlimited immigration from the third world of like lower status people specifically to destroy Western civilization. Elon Musk responded to that person and said, "You have said the absolute truth." That ideology was echoed initially by the synagogue shooter that's responsible for the worst anti-Semitic hate crime in the United States of America in modern American history.
So obviously Elon Musk, like he's made clear in his posts, his views, very, very pro-Nazi, constantly like boosting and supporting far-right conspiracy theories. And even if he's not a Nazi, the distinction between someone who is a Nazi and someone who acts exactly like a Nazi is pretty irrelevant. So surely the defenders of Israel would come out in force to condemn an open display of Nazi anti-Semitism such as this, right? Never again, as the phrase goes. So, with that borne in mind, let's introduce Angela Epstein, who is a journalist in the UK, who once accused Jeremy Corbyn of the most vile anti-Semitism for pronouncing her name Epstein as opposed to Epstein. Writing in the Daily Mail, she has said that Mr. Corbyn's Germanic dictation drips with the memories of the ghetto when, during World War II, 6 million Jews were murdered in the Holocaust. Hearing Epstein, spoken by someone who's not Jewish, can't be dismissed as an avuncular drop of Yiddish, as it would be if a Jewish person had said it. Also, it has a way of othering Jewish people, to mark them out as something foreign, alien. I was not alone on Tuesday. Within moments, social media rang with despair, commenting on a tweet which asked, "Does calling him Epstein make him sound more Jewish?" Comedian David Baddiel said, "Every Jew noticed. Of course, there will be those who think we Jews are overreacting. What's in a name then, when surely it's the message we should be focusing on?" So, Angela looked at Corbyn's mispronunciation of that word and concluded that it brought back all the memories of Auschwitz. Well, in the face of Elon Musk's open Nazi salute, she must have been outraged, right? Condemning him for his dog whistle Nazism, like the obvious open anti-Semitism, saying Jewish people are bringing in black people from the third world to overwhelm the white people, right? Agreeing with that sort of thing and then doing a Nazi salute. Just keep that image in your head of Angela condemning Jeremy Corbyn as you watch this clip of her speaking about Elon Musk.
He was so excitable that his hand sprung out in a way that was, or he is so incredibly clever that he did something supremely nuanced, which is all the things that Richard said about sending this kind of subliminal dog whistle gesture to those that know what I'm doing up, but actually I'll dress it up as something silly. Because would I be so stupid as to make this the point of conversation at the heart of the inauguration? If I was a betting man, I would say no, it wasn't, because I just don't. I think there are better ways to make that kind of level of conversation heard. I didn't feel offended by it, and believe me, there is an awful lot to be not only offended but feared by when you're Jewish. He was so excitable that his hand. Okay, and I think what we'll do is we'll combine this with the stuff about the ADL. So this was a report from Al Jazeera.
So you might have seen Elon Musk is accused of giving Nazi salutes to a crowd celebrating the inauguration of Donald Trump. If not, here it is.
This one really mattered. And I just want to say thank you for making it happen. Thank you. My heart goes out to you.
Musk denies it, but quite a lot of people don't buy it, including many Jewish campaign groups and Jewish politicians. For example, Jerry Nadler, a Democratic congressman from New York, said he never imagined he would see the day when a Hail Hitler salute is made behind the presidential seal. But one Jewish group has jumped to Musk's defense. That's the Anti-Defamation League, the ADL. The ADL called it an awkward gesture, not a Nazi salute. This defense of Musk has put the focus on the ADL and raised the question, why is a group that defines itself as the world's leading authority on anti-Semitism defending anyone doing that? It's important to note there's a broader context here. Musk is accused of using his platform to promote right-wing bigotry, conspiracy theories, and, yes, anti-Semitism. He's also supporting Germany's AfD party in upcoming elections. The AfD is anti-immigration, and some of its members have used Nazi slogans, anti-Semitic language, and trivialized the Holocaust. The ADL, the same group that defended Musk, has serious concerns about this German far-right party. But it seems to have changed its tune with regards to the South African-born billionaire. For years, the ADL has been the go-to organisation for agencies and the corporate world when it comes to anti-Semitism and broader civil rights issues. But more recently, it's been accused of changing priorities. It's accused of going soft on bigots and racists, as long as they support Israel. The ADL is unashamedly, according to its own website, a supporter of Israel and Zionism. It even facilitates training trips for US police to Israel to learn all about terrorist violence. The ADL says it supports civil rights, but has spent a good part of the last year attacking pro-Palestine and peace in Gaza rallies at universities. The ADL says it's giving Musk the benefit of the doubt, but that's cold comfort to minority groups already terrified about the rise of anti-Semitism and racist politics.
Okay, I am very interested to know your guys' thoughts on this one. Will, do you want to get us started? Because very interested.
Sure, long-time ADL hater here. I've always been anti it. It's an Israeli psyop, guys, and that's so horrible to think about, but it is. They named it. It is. The origin of it's Israeli. The guy spoke in the Knesset, a bunch of. Oh, it's so bad. Oh, it's so bad. It's so stupid. There's oh, I hate it. Because I'm not Jewish, but I'm Jewish enough for some anti-Semites to hate me, right? I'm an eighth Jewish, so they would still not a fan, right? So I have some blood in the game, but I also have a heart. I care about people. ADL is promoting anti-Semitism when they won't go after a neo-Nazi, Trump's a neo-Nazi. So yeah, the ADL, horrible. We should completely ignore them. Any corporation that references them should be completely ignored. Any guidebook that references them should be ignored. It should be citing Voice of America. It is that level of idiocy. Voice of America obviously being a CIA psyop, literally funded and created by the CIA. It should be ignored to that level of it. He did a Nazi salute. Duh. And you know what? He didn't deny it. Go on Twitter, find me where he said, I did not do a Nazi salute. He hasn't said that. You know what I would do if someone thought I had a Nazi salute? I would send out a tweet, I did not do a Nazi salute. That would be horrible, and I condemn any and all actions. No, he goes on to support a neo-Nazi organization, AfD. He's a Nazi. Guys, he's a Nazi. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. He's a Nazi. He's a South African-born guy that made a shit ton of money off of apartheid. Nazi. I would be surprised if he wasn't a Nazi, to be honest. He's a multi-billionaire, and he was raised in apartheid South Africa, making a bunch of money off of it. Why would I be surprised? Everything I know about Elon Musk always is this. It's just stupid. It's just so stupid. And he doesn't even really like Israel. He just thinks it's probably a good idea. And also, South Africans love Israel. You know why? Because they housed other evil people, right? And Israel copied South Africa. Anyway, this is where I get into other Israel stuff. But the Palestinian Authority is a copy of the Bantustans, everyone. Bantustans being a copy of the Native American reservations. And then concentration camps being taken from South Africa. So it's all very connected. And it's just duh, fascists are back. Act in line. There's no question about it. It's now, what do we do about it? I don't know. I'm not nearly as productive as I could be with this topic because it just infuriates me. I'm not to the point of critical reason now because it's just
It's good. It's what we want. We want that visceral reaction. I love that.
It's true though. It does. Am I lagging? Sorry, I can't
No,
tell.
you're fine, I think.
Okay, good. I mean, I'm infuriated by that because I find it ironic that back in 2023, Elon Musk actually tried to sue the ADL because of anti-Semitic claims, and then they're like, "Oh no, he's not an anti-Semite." Blah blah blah. Like, no, not our Musk, not our Musk. And I think the questions you really need to be asking when it comes to Musk is Elon Musk a Nazi? Just look at who supports him. And look at who's backing him. You've got Christian nationalists that are backing. I was going to call him a Nazi, but he is backing Elon Musk. You've got white supremacists who are backing Elon Musk. You've got neo-Nazis that are backing Elon Musk, who all hailed Elon Musk's salute as this historic comeback for their cause. That in and of itself is it proves to me Nazism, proves to me that Elon Musk is a neo-Nazi, and like you said, Will, you just have to look at how he behaves. When I look at his backings, when I look at his public preoccupations on X, I think it's very, very clear to see, clear as day, that this guy does not A, care about Israel, like you said, B, does not care about Jewish people, C, only cares about his own public self-interests, and if he can assure that by let's protect freedom of speech and blah 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 on X, and let me protect X, and fuck the ADL and this, that, and the other. Like, I don't know. I find it laughable. And I have to reiterate this point. When the ADL, when he was trying to sue the ADL for the fact that they were calling him an anti-Semite, and then all of a sudden the ADL are like, no way. Not Musk. He was not doing a Nazi salute. Like, honestly, what a spit in the face when it comes to Jewish people. You do not stand for the rights and the self-interest of Jewish people. You do not care. You care about your own self-interest, and it pisses me off entirely. So, yeah, fuck Musk. Fuck the ADL. I'm done with them all. Can't stand them.
Yeah, no, 100% agree. Don't mistake my laughter for like disagreement. I'm 100% behind you. It's just the kind of reaction I got from both of you. Ideal, fucking love it, in the sense that I love seeing this reaction from you, because that's my reaction. Do you know what I mean? That's how I've been feeling, and you guys just express it so well. There's one more video that I want us to watch and react to. It's kind of linked to the first two. A creator Will might recognize, called That Opinionated Girl. She used to be known as That Zionist Girl. Do we recognize her?
Oh, guys. Oh, I hate her. I have such parasocial relationships with so many of these people. I hate her. Okay, play it. I guess I'll deal.
Okay. So just to clarify, in case it wasn't clear, this creator went hard justifying every atrocity that the IDF committed in the name of defending Israel against Hamas Nazis. So let's just see what she had to say about Elon Musk, because of course she went out to bat for him, because of course she did.
If you are someone who truly believes that what Elon Musk did was a Nazi salute, you are not intelligent enough to be in politics, nor should you be sharing your opinion online. If anything, we should all be pointing and laughing at you, because if you truly believe that he did that, then you truly believe all these Democrats did one as well. So why weren't you outraged about it then? Oh, because you knew that wasn't what they're doing. The same way that when Elon Musk makes a statement saying from my heart to yours and does that motion, you know he's not doing a Nazi salute. You're just so angry that you lost. You're so angry that America woke up and is tired of the leftist bullshit that you've been pushing upon us for so long. So you're trying to say and do anything that will make people second guess themselves now supporting the right. And it's not working. You're showing the world what an absolute clown you are. Donald Trump recently won a defamation lawsuit against ABC for $15 million. I want people to understand how hard it is for somebody of that level of fame to win a defamation lawsuit. Not only do you have to be able to prove that they lied, but you have to be able to prove so that they did it with bad intent towards you, that they purposely made a story up to make you look bad. And he was able to prove it. And then you wonder why people sit here and say fake media, say that they don't trust the news anymore because they lied to you. And this is not anything different. If anything, I honestly feel really bad for Elon Musk. Not that I agree with necessarily everything he says, but people forget that this man is a diagnosed autistic man. There are going to be certain tics and behaviors and speech patterns that he has has that other people aren't going to understand. As somebody with autism myself, I can attest to this. There's a lot of times where I think I'm being perfectly normal and nobody else does. So it's really sad
This is one of those times.
to see the media vilify him for things that literally are just symptoms of autism, and people sit there and they think that it's funny. No, he gets excited, he stims, he has certain vocal patterns. He's going to be a lot more blunt than most people would ever be, and that's something that I appreciate, but a lot of people don't. They want to be lied to, they want to be sugar-coated. But this was not a Nazi salute. This was a sad attempt at the left to try to slander the right, and it just didn't work out that well for them.
Well, I'm convinced. I don't know about you guys.
Guys, it was so good.
I'm at a loss for words. But I knew, I haven't seen this video, I knew she was going to say something about the fact that he was neurodivergent. Like 100%. That's their go-to. Oh, he's just stimming. Oh, he's neurodivergent. That's not an excuse. I did see Jim's comment. He said, can I show this? He said, whose fetus is this? Come and get it. Quite literally. Quite literally. Like, oh my goodness. I don't know what to say to that video. I'm in shock.
Oh, I do. I got some words. I got some words for this fetus. This fetus in Lululemon. I didn't know they produced Lululemon. Anyway, but I've heard about Lululemon. Anyway, her Fabletics. This is where my gay side comes out because I'm not nice. Like, this is ridiculous. Okay, so a few things. Once you have $100 million in the bank, you are no longer neurodivergent. Okay? You know why? Because you can hire an advisor to tell you when, where, what to say, to interpret tones, to tell you how to be social. I don't care. I lose all sympathy once you have $100 million in the bank. That's my hot take. That's my hot take coming from people like with different disabilities. You're not. Disability social. If you have $100 million, you can pay for any social difference. Okay? I have no sympathy for you, Elon. Also, Elon is a fucking eugenicist when it comes to autistics. Yeah, he self-identifies as with having Asperger's syndrome. Guys, Asperger's was what? A Nazi. He was a Nazi. And so he literally because he thinks like high functioning, low functioning. So we want to talk about Elon Musk and autism. That's more Nazi shit, right? And yeah, I just get 10 points of like psychic damage whenever I see that girl. Like what she's saying is nonsense. It just doesn't make any sense. It was an awkward hand motion. It was a stim. Have you ever seen a person stim?
What an insult to those who are actually on the spectrum and those who are neurodivergent. Like you spit in the face of those who are neurodivergent when you say it was just a stim. Like, no, it wasn't. The fact that you cannot sit there and condemn this abhorrent act, I think is so wild to me. And this in and of itself, this action, extremists will look at this action and think that this is a license to kind of warrant their own violent extremism. So that's what concerns me. They will see, oh, well, Elon Musk did it, so therefore I think I'm warranted when it comes to my behavior out there. And I can simply say, oh, I have autism, or oh yeah, I have I'm on the spectrum, blah blah blah. Like, no, absolutely not. Condemn things that are obviously quite wrong. There was nothing ambiguous about about what he did, and the fact that people are still deliberating it and are still making these ridiculous excuses for his wild behavior. I think it's so wild to me. Absolutely insane.
Oh, and did it twice. Guys.
Twice.
It wasn't it wasn't a random hand gesture. He did it twice and hard twice. He wasn't like, oh, let me try it the first time. Oh, that feels a little close to the Nazi shit. He was like, oh, it feels a little close to Nazi. Let's do it again to the great leader. Like, he did it towards the powerful people. Like, that's, oh, yeah. Oh, and just the Democrat thing. You think all the other Democrats did it. First of all, maybe they did. I don't know. Show me the videos. I've seen the videos. No, they didn't. No, they didn't. Look at the videos. That's not the thing they did, right? Trump, he hit that hard. The other ones are like people waving at people up. Like the Kamala one they pull is like they're waving. Oh, it's real silly. And someone already has copied Elon, right? That like fake pastor who's been kicked out of, by the way, 3 denominations.
Calvin
Do you
Robinson.
see the expose where it's like, you get kicked out of this shitty denomination, this shitty denomination. How are you this bad at being a pastor? Yeah. Just join the Catholic Church. It seems impossible to get kicked out of that one. Yeah, you just got to keep it quiet.
That was the one he got kicked out of most recently.
He did get kicked out of the
That was
Catholic
the one he
Church
got kicked
recently.
out
Was
of
it the
most
Catholic
recently.
one?
Yeah, the
Yeah.
Catholic Church.
Oh,
Like,
bro.
half of the fucking Waffen SS were in
Calvin Robinson.
were in the Catholic Church. Were confessing Catholics. You have to be a real shit to get kicked out of the Catholic Church. Oh my god.
Yeah, but how did Calvin get away with it and Elon did not get away with it? Like this is what I'm confused about. How they were able to hold Calvin Robinson to account, but didn't hold Elon Musk to account. If anything, the things that people were saying after, oh, it was a Roman salute. What a euphemistic way of saying Nazi salute. Like what a fucking joke. Like are you joking? It's absolutely insane.
It was also like do y'all know what a Roman salute is? Like the Roman salute is the one the Italians did, guys. Like that the Mussolini really liked that one.
Yeah.
Like it's not this isn't working, everyone. It is like a classic. I don't know. This is something I always think back at. Like people only ask 2 questions. And so if we go for the obvious one, if they just have like a slightly less obvious explanation, no one will question it. So we go, that was a Nazi salute. And they're like, no, it's actually much more complicated than that. And then by then everyone's tired and no one actually wants to deal with anything. And they'll be like, well, both sides are kind of maybe right. But no, it's so dumb.
And I think him throwing out that salute, I think on a day where there's this advancement of draconian like policies, I think is super, super ironic. And I think it was intentional. And like you said, Will, the fact that it happened twice, first time, maybe someone could make an excuse. I probably wouldn't personally. Second time, there's forethought that comes with that. You've done it on a day where there've been a bunch of executive orders thrown out that are against immigration, that are against equality, that are against trans people, that are against people who are just not part of the norm that you render as the norm. So yeah, I think that there is this salute of Musk's does have it's a warm welcome to those who are on the far right and extremists who are on that side of the spectrum. So
I also wanted to draw attention to the fact because you could tell that she didn't like having to defend Elon Musk a little bit because she was like, yeah, and Donald Trump, she like tried to bring Donald Trump into it. And the fact that Donald Trump successfully sued somebody for defamation recently. If I remember correctly, that case was the case where somebody said that he had raped E. Jean Carroll. And in fact, he had, it was counted as
sexual assault.
Digital sexual assault, I think was the
Yes.
as in digits, as in hands, fingers.
Hands,
I think it falls under sexual assault rather than rape, and so it's more of a technicality than anything else. So her going, but I did like her argument that that it's so difficult for rich people who of course have access to the best lawyers to win defamation cases. Poor rich people, they have it so hard in defamation cases. Like what? What are you talking about?
Oh, okay. Let me steel man that argument just for a second. She this is where you get like only asked to have one question. So the thing she is pointing to, even though she really doesn't have enough of a prefrontal cortex to understand it, nothing's going on there. So public figures have a higher bar for defamation, is what she's referencing. Where you have to prove malice in public figures, whereas you don't have to prove malice in non-public figures.
Yeah.
But like that bar, when you have a good lawyer, is so low. Like
exactly.
So
it's true.
Well, what's funny is you know who else is a public figure? Carroll, the person that Trump lost to. They had to prove malice, and they won. And it's just people don't understand the distinction of it. I understand the feeling of like blood boiling. Like I just because people don't understand. Like in that lawsuit, he had to say, no, I didn't rape someone. I sexually assaulted someone. I guess. Like what do you like? Good work. Oh, I'm so proud of you. It's so silly. Oh yeah.
Oh my god.
It's just silly.
Yeah, madness, utter madness. Like,
get over
my
it.
god. We could touch briefly on the aviation safety stuff, but to be honest, I think we should probably wrap the show up. How are you guys feeling? Did you any final thoughts that you wanted to put out over anything we've covered? Anything you want to emphasize for the end?
I feel like I've used so many expletives today, so apologies in advance to everyone that I did that. But I will just in future just remove the expletives. But I'm still sticking to the fact that I will say, F Trump, F Musk, F the ADL, and that is my final thoughts. And also, let's add another person to that list. the fetus that we were showing at the end, who was, yeah, what a joy to watch. What a joy to watch. But I do think that if we want to see real change, I think we have to collectively come together and push back against the atrocities that are happening at the moment. I think if we don't push back against these systems, don't push back against the likes of Trump being in some sort of in this administration, then we see no change. So the importance of just really stepping forward and having no shame when it comes to that, I think, is so important. Condemn what needs to be condemned, and don't be an active bystander when it comes to things that are quite obviously abhorrent and heinous in nature. And that will be my closing statement. Thank you.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I don't think I have anything quite that productive to say. This was me trying to say less expletive stuff, but because I'm just angry, guys.
Same.
To those, I guess what I would say was, to those who care, the American way, whatever that means, is not fascism. Guys, we're a little more quiet about our evil. The American way is to punch a fascist. So I'm not a patriot, guys. I don't like America. But if you do, we fought a war over this, guys. We threw Nazi propagandists in jail. We didn't like them. I was raised to hate Nazis. I was raised to house victims of Nazi. The ultimate thing that I was told when I was raised is, if you were in Nazi Germany, would you house the Jewish person? Would you house the gay person? Would you and what I wasn't told is more important, would you house the leftist? Would you house the communist? Would you house the trade unionist? Right? If they were running from the Nazis, because they were the first victims. Right? That's who they came after first, and then they went after all the social groups. Let's be clear. Right? So if you think that's important to you, if you were raised to care about American values, once again, whatever that means, American values are not this. American values are not kicking out immigrants. We're all immigrants. Up until like the 80s, we had an open border between Mexico and America, basically. Like, it's just complete revisionist history. So I'd say don't fall for it. Every single thing, we can't be outraged, but we can consistently hold their feet to the fire and say, this is not American. This is not masculine. You're being losers. You gross looking virgins. There's nothing sexy about them. There's nothing masculine about them. It's disgusting. And so call them weird, call them ugly, call them annoying, and tell them that they're a disgrace to the Constitution and to America. And I think that's the best things we have, because nationalism is super powerful in America. The best thing we can do is stop them from weaponizing it and weaponize it ourselves. And also masculinity is super strong in America, and they try. But this is just an embarrassing showing from a bunch of spray tanned Nazis. It's weird and it's gross. So
and not even a great spray tan.
It's poor. If you have $1 billion, get a better spray tan, guys.
Yeah.
Eat carrots. How about that?
Yeah. Get a nice natural orange. Yeah.
At least be that weird billionaire that talks about his nighttime erections. Like, at least he is taking care of his health. At least he's trying. Trump, what are you doing? Get a facelift. If you're going to make fun of how ugly other people are. Anyway, I can't go off. We all get the point.
Very true. Very true. We'll round off that. That's a nice ending. I like that. It's cool. It's supposed to be a more chill show, so I love that. Excellent. So that is all we have time for this evening. Thank you to Will and Sarah for joining me tonight. Please don't forget that we have a Normal Island show at 8 p.m. on Monday. We will see you all next time, and have a good rest of your weekend.